You gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis.
What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you?
It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, isn't it?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. He looked good, Coach.
Oh, try it. Thank you.
Welcome to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Tuesday in the Quad Cities, Tuesday, March 17th. It's officially St. Patrick's Day, so happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone watching out there. I'm half Irish. My mom is 100% Irish, so and she watches the show every now and then, I believe. So happy St. Patrick's Day to my mom, of course, and everybody out there as well. I know everybody celebrated this weekend, a lot of celebrating this weekend when it came to St. Patrick's Day. So, but today actually St. Patrick's Day. So, welcome. Thank you for watching the show. A lot to get to. Great week, great time of year. If you're watching us live on YouTube, we appreciate that. Make sure you're subscribed. It costs you absolutely nothing to do. It helps us out a ton. So subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, thank you. And be interactive with our chat. It was very active yesterday with March Madness stuff, and rightfully so. So if you are watching on YouTube, hop on. Live guests, Kyle Huesmann on the Hawkeye Report mentioned that sometimes we record. This time we're not recording, so Kyle Huesmann is watching and waiting, and we will be with him to talk Iowa women's basketball in just a matter of moments. If you're watching us on X, we appreciate that. We're live on X. X has been very, very good to us. We're also up on all your podcasting platforms as well, so Spotify, iHeart, Podbean, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to the show each and every day. And of course, welcome to our viewers in Central Iowa as well. We're on the WHO streaming app every evening as well. Yesterday's show, a lot of fun. We went over Iowa men's basketball, their road. Talked a little Fran McCaffrey as well with Nicholas Bear and Tom Kakert. If you missed that, go back, check it out. A lot of good stuff there. Talked about the matchup with Clemson, a favorable matchup, I believe, as well. So also we talked with Scott Harding, Brock Harding's dad, Brock and TCU in the NCAA tournament. It's Brock Harding's first trip to the NCAA tournament. So great conversation, and going back into the old days with Scott. He talked about how he used to get Brock out of school to watch the NCAA tournament every year. And Brock would always say, I'm going to be in there one day, and he's in the NCAA tournament. So great conversation with him. And then Mike Hagley from the Illini guys talked a ton of Illinois basketball yesterday as well. Today, we didn't focus on the women too much yesterday. They start a day later than the guys. So today we're going to focus on the ladies. Coming up in a little bit, matter of moments, Kyle Huesmann from the Hawkeye Report to break down what Iowa has ahead of them and the big picture too. We've talked with Kyle for the last couple weeks of what is the ceiling, and you can't answer what the ceiling is when you don't know what the brackets. So now we have brackets. We can maybe talk some ceiling and a bunch of other stuff. Kyle Huesmann from the Hawkeye Report straight ahead. Also in the first hour of the show, after Kyle will be John Bohnenkamp. He's going to talk a little more Iowa women with us, but Western Illinois, a 13 seed, which I thought was really cool. A lot of people expected a 15 seed. 13 seed for Western Illinois. We'll talk with John about the Leathernecks, a little Iowa women as well. That's coming up. Also, we did no Cyclones yesterday, and I know it's not Wednesday, but I don't think we could have waited till Wednesday to talk with Jake Brend. So we'll have Jake with us to talk in the second hour of the show about the road for for Iowa State. They haven't made the Final Four since 1944. I believe is what it is, like 88 years or something like that. So can they get back there? They go to St. Louis. Also, the women, congratulations. You're an 8 seed. You probably get UConn if you win. So, or you will get UConn when you win. So we'll talk with Jake Brend about a lot of stuff as well. So a busy show for you once again here on a snowy, I guess. Snowish isn't a word. Snowy Tuesday here in the Quad Cities. Supposed to get more snow tonight, and then it's supposed to be really nice after that. My son's supposed to have his first high school baseball game tomorrow. I don't think that's going to happen. I know their coach watches the show. It's not looking great. I know we want to be optimistic, but it's not looking great. One thing I do want to talk to you guys about before we get going in the show is the OTA Bracket Challenge is up and running on CBS Sportsline. It's a ton of fun. We did it last year. Great support last year, and that was just year one, and we were, 2 months into doing this thing? Maybe 9 weeks into doing this thing. This year it's already a bigger response than ever. Great prizes from our sponsors, and hey, it's completely free to get in and play. That's the best part. Completely free. The packages include one winner's package is a day rental from MPX of a party trailer, and along with it comes a party sub from Hungry Hobo. So that is very cool. Another package has a bunch of Snoop's food, chips, salsa, enchiladas, those kind of things, and Godfather's pizzas as well. So a food package with a win as well. And then also another package, so there'll be 3 winners, is a Visa gift card, $50 Visa gift card from Crawford Company. We thank them for donating that as well. And then last place, if you finish dead last, you'll get a cinnamon monkey bread from Godfather's as well. So you can win and not even know you're winning. So that's the beauty part. So get in there. The link is up on my Facebook page, also on X. I'll put it up during the show several times as well. I believe if you go to CBS Sportsline and just put in Off the Air, you could probably get in there as well, but it's completely free. Get in, check it out, make your picks, and win some great prizes from some great sponsors here for Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. A couple quick notes. A trade in the NFL yesterday we didn't even talk about. Justin Fields is now the backup in Kansas City, and watch that dude do something this year and be good. Because it's Kansas City. Not that obviously they have a pretty good quarterback of their own, but I thought that was an interesting note. And then locally here in the Quad Cities, former Rock Island standout KJ Lamont was named the ICCAC Player of the Year, Conference Player of the Year. He plays at Indian Hills. He's had a fantastic season. We're going to catch up with KJ Lamont and have him on the show here tomorrow on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. So that'll be a bunch of fun as well. So looking forward to talking with KJ about his journey in college basketball. Nowadays, it's a journey for a lot of these guys because you start at one place, you go to another, and then you end up, maybe at your final destination next year for KJ as well. So looking forward to that as well. But we start our day talking Iowa women's basketball, and we start with the one and only Kyle Huesmann. Kyle, have you gotten into the Off the Air bracket challenge yet? And if not, what's wrong with you?
I have not yet. You're going to have to send me a link or something to that so I'll get it in there if you send me the link for it.
Oh, absolutely. See, so you can compete against Kyle Huesmann as well. I think Tommy's in there. Tom wants to win. And and you're a Quad Cities guy, like all that stuff, you can come home and hammer hobo.
True.
The Snoops travels. That's the beauty part. Have you had Snoops? You've had Snoops at
yeah, it was a golf every year.
Yes, it's so good. Anyways, enough food. How are you, my friend? How was Selection Sunday? Have you had a chance to breathe at all after everything coming on Sunday?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Selection Sunday is always fun just because, and I think it's one of my favorite days of the entire basketball season just because there's so much anticipation, both men's and women's, of just, both Iowa teams, both men and women knew they were in, but you don't know who you're going to play. You don't know what the draw is going to be like. And there's just, whether you're a 1 seed or a 16 seed, there's just so much anticipation to see, who's that team that you're going to face potentially for the first time in your career. Sometimes it's for the first time in program history. I think that's so fun, is just seeing some of those new opponents that you don't get to play normally. So I think that's always the fun part about Selection Sunday. But then once the show's done, then it's, for me, I guess, and for the teams as well, it's breaking down, who they're going to play and, what the path is and things like that. So, it's been busy, but I mean, the women don't play till Saturday. So there's actually a pretty big break here before things get going.
And that's, we're going to talk about their break because they haven't played in a while. It's going to be a long break for them. You were there at Selection Sunday. You talked about the vibe and all those kind of things as well. No surprises. Obviously, a second seed. They made us wait a little bit towards the end of the reveal, if you will. When you look at the bracket off the bat, and I know you have to look at Fairleigh Dickinson. We'll talk about them in a second. But I mean, if you're not a nut when it comes to women's basketball, you can put Iowa into the next round. I mean, something drastic has to happen for them not to get through. I always look at like what's next, and then of course who's the 1 seed, all those kind of things. I guess big picture, when you looked at Iowa's bracket, what stood out to you?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, what we talked about for probably months was when Iowa was back at like the 4 seed was where they were projected, talking about, they don't want to be a 4 because then you got to play a 1 in the Sweet 16, and then the importance of getting to a 3 seed and the importance of getting to a 2 seed. And you see it with when the bracket comes out. I mean, Iowa gets a 2 seed, and yeah, they get TCU as a 3 seed. But you look at some of the other ones, Louisville's a 3 seed, Duke's a 3 seed. They wouldn't have gotten Ohio State. But then you look at the 2 seeds. If Iowa had fallen to a 3 seed, they could have got Vanderbilt or LSU. And again, we've talked several times about the margins and how slim they are when you're talking about stuff like this. But I think they get TCU. Had it been Louisville or something like that, that's a little bit different than had you had to play LSU or a Vanderbilt in the Sweet 16. So I think getting up to a 2 seed was really important. Michigan ended up getting a 2 seed, so that Iowa-Michigan game at the Big Ten tournament was not for a 2 seed, one or the other. They were both going to get one. But yeah, looking at Iowa's side of the bracket, their region, obviously South Carolina is the 1 seed. Oklahoma's up there as well, which is moderately intriguing because there's not many 4 seeds or so that you could even or even 5 seeds that you look at and say, can they take down a 1 seed? Oklahoma's done it. They did it in Norman, I know, so it's going to be a little bit different. It would be in Sacramento if they did it this time, but Oklahoma has beat South Carolina this year. So I guess if you're an Iowa fan that likes to look way down the road, it's not one of those where you go, man, I just hope that so-and-so can keep it close and potentially beat South Carolina. Oklahoma has done it this year, so there's some hope there for that way down the road. But TCU is going to be a tough matchup in the Sweet 16 if Iowa gets there. Washington's a good team. Depends on the night what Washington looks like, but I think Washington could give TCU a test. I don't know that they would beat them. But then certainly in Iowa's regional, Georgia in the second round, if that's who it is going to be a tough matchup. We've seen Iowa play Georgia in the second round in Carver before, and it was a very tough matchup when it happened a couple of years ago. But certainly if it was Virginia or Arizona State, those 2 teams have got some good players as well. So, I mean, like I said, I think Iowa getting to a 2 seed was really important. I think there's a chance for them to go pretty deep in the tournament, and then maybe you hope that Oklahoma can do something against South Carolina on the top side of the bracket.
You look at it, Kyle, and we'll talk about Fairleigh Dickinson eventually, but that second round matchup, and I guess let's start with Fairleigh Dickinson. I mean, can you tell us anything about Fairleigh Dickinson? I don't think you need to. And when you come to a 2 versus a 15, especially this day and age of college basketball, and with the women's this year, I think it's just so hard to even fathom anything crazy happening. But it's more about Iowa. It's also, and the way I look at it too, not that they need the rest because they're coming off a lot of rest, but probably a chance to play a good amount of players. What do you know about Fairleigh Dickinson? Talk about that first round matchup Saturday at Carver Hawkeye Arena.
Yeah, I mean, Fairleigh Dickinson, to their credit, they've had a fantastic year. I mean, they come in at 28-4, went 18-0 in the regular season in the Northeast Conference, and then went 3-0 in the conference tournament. So they took care of business in their conference. They went 21-0 against Northeast Conference teams. A lot of those they won handily. They won by 35 in the first round of the conference tournament. They win by 20 in the second round. And then Long Island, it wasn't even an upset. Long Island was the 2 seed in that conference tournament of the championship, and Fairleigh Dickinson beat them by 22. So FDU was by far and away the best team in that conference this season. Now the thing that you have to look at is that the Northeast Conference in the net rankings, they were 31st out of 31 conferences. So you take the 21-0 record with a bit of a grain of salt. Still very impressive for them to go through again. We've talked about, I mean, we haven't talked about, but it's the same conversation as Miami, Ohio. It's hard to go into your conference and win that many games. And like FDU was doing it handily on most nights. So impressive for them to do that. Not really any opponents outside of the first 2 games of the season. You have to go all the way back to November 5th. They played Notre Dame, lost 98-52. They lost to Purdue in the season opener, 67-48. Also lost to Rutgers on the road. But you're talking all the way back in November. So there's not much to look at and say, hey, they played this team that was pretty good. Obviously playing in the Northeast Conference, there's not a lot of opponents that you look at and say, hey, there's something that we can draw from. So I mean, FDU is going to be what you normally get out of a team from a conference like that. They don't have a lot of size. So Ava Hayden and Hannah Stolke is going to be something that you look even at like Notre Dame or Purdue. They don't have what Iowa has with Ava Hayden and Hannah Stolke. So it's going to be something that FDU hasn't seen this season. Torvik has Iowa as a 28-point favorite. So I was going to go in as a big favorite. And as you said, a chance to just kind of go take care of business. Iowa should win this game by 20 plus points. And there's a difference between, going in the second round after a 15-point win where you just kind of, go through the motions against FDU. And there's a difference between going out and winning by 25 or 30. And like you said, getting some bench players in and letting everybody play. So I mean, we all fully expect Iowa to win and win handily, but there is a difference between winning by 15-20 and winning by 30 and making it look like you're a 2 seed that belonged to be a 2 seed. So like I said, I expect Iowa to take care of business, but certainly a good year for Fairleigh Dickinson.
You look at it, Kyle, and it's almost a nice warm up because they haven't played in a while, and so now they kind of get the little warm up before maybe Georgia. I think if you talk to Coach Jensen, she'd love to see maybe a team that has to play 3 times in what, 5 days on Monday at Carver Hawkeye. But with that being said, you're looking so many Iowa fans, and I've talked to too many that are like, I'm worried about that second round. I'm worried about Georgia. Can you talk to that if it is Georgia? And then also, is it PTSD where it's like it just happened? I mean, I know Creighton was a couple years ago, but Creighton happened and it's a thing. And you mentioned the Georgia game. I mean, the Georgia game was a battle at Carver Hawkeye Arena. It's not been cakewalks in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Kind of look ahead to that second game, and is it Creighton problems than it is anything else, or is there a concern about being tested big time in the second round of the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I mean, you look back, we've talked, I think it's 5 times. This is the 5th time in the last 6 non-COVID seasons that Iowa's hosted a regional. The previous 4 times, Iowa's not had they haven't had a time where, like you said, they just walk through and advance to the Sweet 16. You go all the way back to prior to COVID. The Megan Gustafson team that was a 2 seed battled with Mercer into the 4th quarter, and it took, they had to take care of this in the 4th quarter to avoid one of those upsets that we were just talking about. We don't think is going to happen in women's basketball. They had to sneak one out against Mercer, and then, like you said, Iowa loses to Creighton in Caitlin's sophomore year, and then Georgia her junior year. That was a very close game, and then certainly West Virginia was down to the wire as well. And that the Georgia year and the West Virginia year, they made the national title in both games. So that's 2 really good Iowa teams that had to, not necessarily sneak out second round wins, but it took everything they had to get that done. And I think that's, stuff that I think the coaching staff is going to, some of these players, Hannah Stolke, Kylie Fierbach, Taylor McCabe, even though she's not playing, Jada Jimfy, even though she's not playing, they were in those moments. And I think the coaching staff is going to bring up some of those things of, hey, look at some of the teams that we had a couple of years ago. We lost at Carver in the second round against Creighton. We had to beat, Georgia at the wire, and we had to take, West Virginia to the wire and those are teams that made the Final Four, made the national title game. So I think that those games are going to be brought up as, hey, you don't just get to walk in the first and second round because you're hosting and win. Now, there's a lot of times where the hosts do win and advance to the Sweet 16. I don't know what the percentage is. There's a very high percentage of the hosts that advance to the Sweet 16, but they're not advancing by cakewalks by any means. So it's going to be tough for Iowa if they want to get to that second weekend and go out to Sacramento. And the thing that Jan mentioned on Selection Sunday after the show was done, we got to talk with her. She felt like that loss to Minnesota could be very helpful, and that's certainly something they're going to draw on as well. She felt like maybe, they go out to Los Angeles and, Taylor McCabe had just gotten hurt and things did not go well. They lose to USC, they lose to UCLA. Really, both of them were comfortable losses. And she felt like maybe when they came back, there was a sense from the team, a sense of just, all right, well, we're back at home. We play Minnesota. We're at Carver. Like, we never lose at Carver type of thing. And then they lose. And Jan said that could be something really good to draw and say, hey, like, a couple games, a month ago or whatever it was, we felt like we could just come into Carver and just win. And then we found out that you can't just do that. You can't just play in Minnesota. You can't just play whoever and just walk into Carver and say, well, it's sold out. We're just going to win because that's what we do. So I think that's one of those instances of where a loss at the time, you're like, well, we don't want to lose. But down the road, now you hit the NCAA tournament. I was hosting for the NCAA tournament. That's a loss that they can look back on and go, that might be a helpful loss, because we can say, hey, remember last time you walked into Carver and said, hey, we can just win because it's Carver Hawkeye Arena. That's going to be a really good example to draw on when they have to play a Georgia or Virginia or Arizona State, whoever it is, in that second round. So I think they have some experiences to draw, and certainly you hope that the veterans, Hannah Stolke, Kylie, Taylor, and Jada can talk to some of these younger players on the team and say, not that any of those younger players just, again, walking in saying we can just go through this because it's Carver, but hey, we played in some of these games. It's not easy to get through to the Sweet 16. So I think it's a mix of the coaching staff drawing on some of those previous games and some of the veterans saying, hey, you got to be ready to go because a Georgia can knock us off. And a Creighton a few years ago did knock us off.
Kyle Huesmann from the Hawkeye Report joining us on Off Day with Matt Randazzo talking Iowa women's basketball. They tip off on Saturday at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Kyle, I want to talk about Coach Jensen and what happened with the shoes before the on Selection Sunday. I thought it was really cool in a second. But when you look big picture with this Iowa team, in order for them to be to their best, who's the X factor? Like, if you, and is it simply Ava has to be really good? I always think the Hawkeyes go as Hannah goes sometimes, and it doesn't mean she has to be great. She just has to be impactful, if that makes any sense. Or do they need to find somebody that can knock down some threes? Because anyway, who's the X factor for the Iowa Hawkeyes coming up this postseason?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because I think that you could go a lot of different ways with. I mean, you could. I'm going to give you a bunch of players right here for a bunch of different reasons. I think Ava Hayden, just because there's the foul trouble things that happen at times. I think she's been better the second half of the season. There's still been games where she's had a little bit of trouble, but I think if they're, and maybe not first round, but certainly in the second round, whether, like I said, Georgia, Virginia, Arizona State, you can't have Ava Hayden sitting on the bench and playing 25 minutes because she's got 3 fouls early in the third quarter. So I think that side of it, that's not necessarily her being an X factor, but just being smart and not getting herself in foul trouble. I think certainly, as you said, Hannah, when she's playing at her best and Ava's playing at her best, that's how the ceiling for this team really elevates, is those two when they're playing at their best level. But you mentioned 3-point shooting. With Taylor McCabe out, this team has still done an okay job of shooting threes. But when Chit Chat has been struggling, maybe she has a game where she's 1 of 6 or 1 of 7, that's when you see Iowa dip down to maybe they only had 3 or 4 made threes in a game. I think they're going to need Chit Chat to be what she's been for the majority of the season. I mean, she's 3rd in the country in 3-point percentage. Out of, I think the stat that I looked up was, out of 750 people that have attempted 100 threes this season, she's 3rd in the country in 3-point percentage. So she's been phenomenal, but they need her to be that night in and night out in the NCAA tournament, whether they play 2 games or whether they play 4 or 5 games in the NCAA tournament. They need her to be on from 3-point range, because if she's not, Taylor Stremel has been pretty good, but they just don't have the same 3-point ceiling if she's not hitting. Taylor Stremel is another person that has done really well since she stepped into the starting lineup. And again, another player that when she is going and finishing with 6, 7, 8 assists in a game or 10 assists in a game, and also knocking down a couple of threes, when she's playing at her best level, it adds another dimension to this team. So I think I would probably say that the X factor is, I would go with Chit Chat, just because you get worried about NCAA tournament time. It's down to win or go home, and all it takes is another team having a hot night and making kind of what we saw from Illinois when they came to Carver. Illinois makes 11 threes and they nearly beat Iowa. That's all it takes in the NCAA tournament, is another team to get hot and make 10 threes in a game. And if Chit Chat is not hitting in that game, Iowa has a ceiling that they might make only 3 or 4 threes in a game. And if another team gets hot, you can get upset if they make 8, 10 threes in a game. So I think Chit Chat being consistent from the 3-point line is going to be really helpful for Iowa in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that 3-point shooting, Iowa doesn't shoot a lot of them, which I think is a good thing. But that's the one thing without Taylor McCabe, obviously, in the lineup. Even if Kylie can knock down, a couple threes and go 2 for 4 instead of 0 for 4, I mean, she can be an X factor. But it's just the nice part about Iowa is it's pretty safe to throw the ball inside, especially early on in the NCAA tournament, for sure. Kyle, he's been joining us on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. I thought a really cool moment in the media celebration, or not celebration, but the media watch party, if you will, when it came to the NCAA tournament. Can you talk about, obviously, Coach Jensen, impactful on the court with the program, but a really cool story. A young lady got to design some shoes for the women's basketball team. Kind of talk about being there, and I know you've gotten to know Coach Jensen pretty well. No surprise on your end to see her do the things she looks at everything big picture, doesn't she? It's more than just the game of basketball.
Yeah, I don't know the full in-depth story on Harper Stride. She's been around the program for a number of years. I think Jane was talking about all the way back to Megan Gustafson's senior year. So they've known her for a number of years, battling cancer. Really, really cool to see them, not only just have the shoes designed and allow her to do it. It sounded like it wasn't actually Jan that made the decision. It sounded like a couple other people on the coaching staff were kind of the ones that came up with it and came to Jan. And Jan was like, yeah, like that's a great idea. But I thought it was great to have her come to the selection show rather than just saying, hey, Harper, design these shoes. She gave them to you guys and let them open them. Harper was there to kind of, enjoy the moment with them. So I thought that was really cool. And Jan brought her up in front of everybody and, spoke about, how they came to the decision of picking her and everything. And the shoes look great. I thought they were really cool. And I heard maybe they're trying to figure out if there's a way to maybe sell them to the public. I don't know if that, I don't know how that works. It's probably a Nike thing that they've got to get that figured out. So I think that would be really cool if they could do that. But a really fun moment, like I said, for Jan to bring her in and let her be a part of that night and not just say like, hey, here are the shoes, this is who designed them, but to bring her in and let her be a part of that moment was really cool.
Kyle, if I told you before the season that Iowa's ceiling going on in the NCAA tournament might be losing to a South Carolina to go to the Final Four, you would have probably taken that and ran as fast as you can and said, well, that's a fantastic season. And that might be what the ceiling is. What's the big picture for this team? I love the fact that they weren't going to do it because they've played UConn and they've played UCLA twice. So obviously they probably weren't going to be in their bracket, but like you didn't want to see either of those teams. You watched Iowa lose at UConn. You've watched Iowa and that's too recent memory of losing by 51 points or whatever it was. What's the ceiling when you look at can Iowa do any better than Elite Eight and losing to South Carolina? And if that's the case, that's still outstanding, isn't it?
Yeah, I think coming into the year, I'd have to look back at some of my preseason stuff. I think I had them kind of tabbed as a Sweet 16 team. I didn't have them as a 2 seed, certainly. I think I was probably thinking 3-4 seed and making the Sweet 16 and probably losing. If they were a 4 seed, they would have been playing a 1 seed. So I think Sweet 16 is kind of where I had them before the season, and I was pretty confident in that. I felt like maybe Elite Eight in the right situation, but I also felt like second round exit would probably feel like kind of a disappointment, especially if they were hosting. Anytime you get to host in the NCAA tournament, you fall short. That in the men's tournament, it's a little bit different. If you get upset in the second round, it obviously it sucks, but it's a little different because you're at neutral sites. I feel like it's really disappointing when you get to host in the women's tournament and you don't get out of your home court. So I had Sweet 16 before the season. Yeah, if you would have told me they were going to be a 2 seed, I would have said, man, that is a heck of a season. And then if you threw in that Emily Rodriguez was going to play 6 games and Taylor McCabe was going to be out with a month left in the season, I would have said, man, I don't know how they quite were able to manage that. So yeah, I think, like you said, I think the ceiling is the Elite Eight. I think they can get through TCU. Certainly, if Washington knocked them off or something like that, that would change things as well. But I think they can certainly get through TCU and get to that Elite Eight. I think that's probably the ceiling. I don't think they beat South Carolina. If Oklahoma did it again and knocked off South Carolina, I think that'd give Iowa a better chance. I think this year's matchup of Iowa Oklahoma compared to last year would be much more interesting because last year you're playing with Hannah Stolke at the 5. Ava Hayden didn't really play much in that game. So I think Iowa's different this year. I think a lot of people would look at Oklahoma and say, man, look what happened last year in Norman. But this is a different Iowa team. I don't know if they would beat Oklahoma. I still think it would be tough to go up against the size that they have. But I think that is the situation that Iowa has to hope for if they want to make a Final Four is hoping for that upset of Oklahoma over South Carolina. But I still think Elite Eight is probably the ceiling unless that upset happens.
Kyle, when you look at the overall picture for the women, is it like so obvious that it is the number 1 seeds? Is that the feeling you still have when it comes to this? I mean, we talked about filling out the bracket challenge for the men. For the women's, my sons were doing it the other day, and it was, I kept on telling them like there's a drop off between those top 4 teams and everybody else. And of course, they argue with me because they argue with you about everything, Kyle. Someday when you have kids, you'll find that out. And I said look, and I just used the Big Ten tournament as an example. I'm like, look at that gap. And so, is it still like if a number 1 team doesn't make it, which one doesn't make it? When you look at the brackets?
That is a good question.
That's all I do, Kyle. I have great questions. I'm an elite journalist. That's what I do.
I don't know that there's one that stands out. I'm looking at the bracket here. I do think I think UConn, UCLA, Texas, and South Carolina are clearly the 4 best teams. But what I would say is, and I think we talked about this prior to the UCLA Big Ten, or maybe after the UCLA Big Ten championship game. It looked really bad because it was a 51-point loss. But if they played 20 times, how many times is UCLA going to win? Somewhere in there, UCLA was going to win by 50. Somewhere in there, they were going to win by 3. And maybe 2 times out of 20, Iowa wins. Something like that. I think that's the same for if Vanderbilt plays a UConn or if LSU plays a UCLA. Or there's going to be if they played 20 or 30 times, they're going to get upset in there somewhere. And somewhere in there, they're going to win by 30 against it. UConn could beat Vanderbilt by 30 in one of those. And if it happens on that day, people go, oh, well, UConn's so good. Well, if they don't get to play 30 times, so we see all the possibilities. I think in a 1 out of 50, a 1 out of 10 chance, Vanderbilt will have, Michaela Blakes will go for 35 or 40 and they beat UConn. I think that's possible. Is it going to happen? I'm going to go with probably not. But we saw with Caitlin back in the Final Four a few years ago. They beat South Carolina. Do they beat South Carolina 10 times out of 10? No, because Caitlin's not putting up 40 10 times out of 10. They probably lose 7 times out of 10. But that 3 out of 10 times happened in that day. And I think Vanderbilt could do that. I think Michaela Blakes could carry them to a win. I think LSU could beat UCLA. I think I mentioned it, Oklahoma over South Carolina, and that Sweet 16 I think could happen. It already did happen earlier this year. Michigan against Texas, I'm not as convinced about that, mostly because the 2 times I've seen Michigan play Iowa, they played their worst basketball. So certainly Michigan's better than what they've shown against Iowa. In terms of how it's going to play out, I think the 1 seeds are the easy picks, but I think there are those 1 out of 10. We've talked a lot about the right day. I think a Vanderbilt could upset a UConn. I think a LSU could beat a UCLA. I think Oklahoma could beat a South Carolina, something like that. Is that going to happen? We have to wait and see. Are they all going to happen? Certainly not. But I think it would be fun if something like that happened, because so many people are going into this tournament thinking it's just going to be the 4-1 seeds. And certainly that would be a great Final Four. I think those 4 teams playing for the championship would be great. But it'd also be fun if, Michaela Blake's went for 40 and UConn lost in the Elite Eight, something like that. And I think it's possible, but we just have to wait and see if that 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20, chance happens.
That's the thing too, Kyle, is people miss maybe the Cinderellas, and the guys' side is getting that way where like there's not as many because of the portal and all that kind of stuff. But you look at a Final Four weekend when you have, South Carolina, Texas, UCLA, and UConn. That's not bad TV. That's not bad entertainment. Before I let you go, men's Final Four quickly. Do you have a men's Final Four? Have you done that yet?
I have. Oh man, I can't remember. I have St. John's in the Final Four.
Oh, wow.
I have them beating Duke, and then I have Michigan State beating UConn, I believe. Or do I have? I can't remember. I think I might have St. John's beating UConn in the Elite Eight. I have Arizona winning it all. On the bottom, I think I had Arizona against who's on the bottom? Michigan. I had Arizona, Michigan, and St. John's, Florida.
Arizona, Michigan would play each other in the Final Four.
Yeah, I think I had Arizona against Michigan and St. John's against Florida, and then Arizona, St. John's in the championship with Arizona winning it. I know that's a little out there with St. John's, but I felt like
you probably win the pool.
Needed something in there.
You probably win our pool once you get in.
I think St. John's is really underrated as a 5. That's crazy that they're a 5 seed in my opinion. Yeah. So I didn't like taking them all the way to the championship. Yeah, I had Florida in the Final Four.
Kyle.
And I didn't like. I might change that. I might have put Houston in the Final
Company.
Four.
No, Hawks are going to shock the world, baby.
And go to the Final Four?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Obviously. So you have Florida beating Iowa. Do you have Iowa winning their first game?
Yeah, I think Iowa will beat Clemson.
I do too.
And then I think they would lose to Florida. And we'll see. I mean, again, I was taking, they beat Nebraska, and then they took Nebraska to overtime. And then, they obviously played Michigan close. They've had a couple of close games against teams that are in similar seeded areas. So I think they could keep it close against Florida.
Yep.
I just don't think they would win.
I don't think they do either. I do think they won't get embarrassed, if that makes any sense. I think it'll be a competitive game in the second round when they play Florida. Houston in Houston. I know Houston's not the physical Houston team from a few years ago, but Houston in Houston for me still kind of. I'm always this. I know you're probably not even born yet, Kyle, but there was one year that Texas A&M. And this is 20 years ago. They were home, and I had Texas A&M going to like the Final Four because they were close to home, and I won all my brackets because of that. So I always see like those guys, those teams that are, and like for me, Houston seems like an advantage. So, anyways, Kyle, tell people Hawkeye Report, all those kind of things. There's a podcast out there right now with Tom and yourself, and for some reason you guys let me hang out, so you guys can listen to that as well. And then the Hawkeye Report has everything right now. And a little baseball as I look outside and see snow on the ground.
Yeah, I don't know. From the baseball side, they're supposed to play today against the UIC in Chicago. UIC has changed their schedule to show that the game is tomorrow because it's supposed to be like 50 in Chicago, but neither team has tweeted about it. So Iowa's website still says the game's today, but they haven't tweeted anything that the game's I have no idea what's happening there. But yeah, certainly I'll have a bunch of stuff this week from Iowa City for the women's tournament. We'll be over there at Friday for the media day. I'm going to go over to Carver on Thursday night to watch Arizona State, Virginia. So certainly I'll have a bunch of stuff from Iowa City, and Tom will have a bunch of stuff for the men's side. They play on Friday night, correct, against Clemson?
Friday, 5:50.
So we'll have that, and then baseball. Whether they play UIC this week or not, who knows? I have to figure that out at some point today. But then they're on the road at Michigan State this weekend, so I'll have a preview of that series. Probably will not be able to cover any of those games. We'll see how that matches up with stuff. But I'll have a full preview of the Michigan State series coming later this week. So yeah, plenty going on. I mean, it's with men. The last couple of years, the men haven't made the tournament, so it's been a little bit different. But with the men in, there's just going to be stuff going everywhere on our site, so there'll be plenty to sit down and read. If people are taking off days work for the NCAA tournament and things like that, there'll be certainly plenty to read while you watch some of those games.
I love it. The Hawkeye Place is the place to go for everything. Kyle, you will be getting a link in your text messages here real soon. The great Kyle Huesmann will be in the Off the Air Bracket Challenge. If that doesn't motivate you to go and pick against St. John's so you beat Kyle, I don't know what will.
Have you put your bracket in yet? I don't want you to just steal off of mine.
I haven't put my. I like to do my bracket after the first weekend. I feel like I do a lot better. No, I'm kidding. That's not.
you probably do a lot better.
I put it in just to make sure the system was working, and then it was the bracket. But I will go through, and I don't want to say change, but I'll probably go through and delete. And then I don't like doing it right away. I like to look at the bracket. I have 2 kids that grab their markers because they're cocky, and pens. They don't even. My wife even said, like, why don't you do it in pencil first? And they're like, no. So they're already in, and then I like to let it marinate a little bit. I'll probably do it sometime today as well. So
do you is it like on a platform? Like are we picking the first 4 games at all?
No. So you can. Oh man. You can click them.
I hate when people don't do the first 4.
But you hate when they don't. But like,
yeah, because because you can get away with, I think NC State's going to beat Texas and make the Sweet 16. Then if Texas beats NC State, makes the Sweet 16, you get
but
fake
then
points.
Be patient, because like the deadline would have to be tonight, right? They play tonight, right?
Yeah, I get it. I understand it. It's just I think it's funny because you can get away with, I picked.
There's a bunch of people in the pool, and it says incomplete, because they're waiting until they find out what goes on before they start doing their. So I think it'll start filling up. It's got 100 and some already. So let's go. Let's get the more the merrier. But Kyle, appreciate it. Make sure Tom doesn't work you too hard. Thanks for carrying the Hawkeye Report. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. That is Kyle Huesmann talking Iowa women's basketball. We'll bug Kyle throughout the weeks here on OTA. Really good stuff. Trying to get, and we'll see. I'm going to try to get Rob Brooks on the show later this week as well to talk a little Iowa women's basketball. It'll be a great weekend at Carver. And it starts, like Kyle said, they have a playing game Thursday night. So there'll be a game there, and he's right. The big reason why is because I think the NCAA committee knows that people are going to go watch women's basketball, so especially in Iowa City. So should be a good crowd there throughout the weekend at Carver Hawkeye Arena. We got more to get to. Coming up after the break, we will continue with the ladies. We'll talk some Western Illinois. They're a 13 seed. We'll also talk a little more Iowa with John Bohnenkamp. He'll be covering the Iowa women this weekend in Iowa City, but he always has his eye on Macomb and Western Illinois. So all that, Jake Brend later in the show. We get your brackets in when it comes to the OTA Bracket Challenge, and we're going to keep rocking and rolling. We'll be right back right here on OTA. All right, be honest. Are you craving Hungry Hobo again? You know, that fresh sliced meat piled high on those amazing sandwiches, hot off the grill chicken and steak with all those delicious toppings, the biggest and best selection of baked potatoes, or simply some waffle fries dipped in cheese. Well, now that Quad City favorite is even easier to get. Download the Hungry Hobo app today. Order ahead, skip the line, and earn rewards all at the same time. There's Double Points Monday and exclusive specials as well. With 12 locations in the Quad City area, it's Hungry Hobo. Now even easier to find, but still hard to resist.
Rafferty Funeral Home, dedicated to serving families in the Quad Cities since 2007.
Hi, welcome. Here, come on in.
An experienced staff plans each service to reflect the unique life and legacy of your loved one. Rafferty Funeral Home is proud to serve our community with dignity, respect, and compassion, helping you to celebrate your traditions and lasting memories no matter your faith, culture, or budget. Rafferty Funeral Home in Moline. Call today to discuss prearrangements.
When it comes to quality, convenient pizza, Godfather's Pizza in Silvis has you covered. Featuring a beautiful dine-in area, delivery, and a carry-out window. Godfather's Pizza is that pizza you grew up with, not a convenience store. You see, at Godfather's Pizza, the dough is made fresh daily. That mozzarella cheese is shredded fresh and never frozen. And those toppings are abundantly piled high each and every time. Locally owned and operated since 2010, Godfather's is a huge supporter of local athletes right here in the Quad Cities. So come on by and check them out at 1211 Avenue of the Cities in Silvis. Order online at godfathers.com and reunite with that same delicious pizza you grew up with. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Tuesday in the Quad Cities. March Madness is in full swing. Plenty of things to get to this week. Of course, always reminding everyone, get themselves in the second annual OTA Bracket Challenge. So many great prizes from our sponsors. Super excited about it. So head to my social media. The link is right there, CBS Sportsline. I think you can even go put Off the Air with Matt Randazzo in on CBS Sportsline and find it that way as well. But get involved, get joined up, and win some prizes during the next couple weeks here on OTA. We spend a lot of the morning talking about the Iowa women. When you're talking about the Iowa women, obviously several local teams still alive on the ladies' side of things are in the postseason, in the big dance on the ladies' side of things. Illinois, Iowa State, the Western Illinois women, a 14 seed as well. So to talk, actually they're a 13 seed, aren't they, John? How dare I slight the Leathernecks? John Bohnenkamp joining me right now on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. How are you, my friend? Are you ready for the madness?
Yeah, I mean it's here. It's the usual. Yesterday was the usual Monday of applying for credentials and figuring out where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be doing and that sort of thing. And it's just that time of year that I'm used to right now. And it helped yesterday that everybody was snowbound, so didn't have anywhere to go. So
I said the same thing. My wife was off work. Kids are on spring break. Happy spring break. Here's a bunch of snow, but it was a good day to get caught up and get ready for things because it's going to be a busy week. I want to start with you. I guess we'll start in Iowa City. I'm going to start with the Iowa women because we just talked about it with Kyle. We knew they were going to be in a 2 seed. We knew they were going to be at home. We hoped maybe it would be Western Illinois. Would be fun, but I mean, and we'll get to the Leathernecks in a second.
Right.
Great for them to be not a 15, but a 13, much different. But your thoughts when the bracket comes out? They made Iowa fans wait a little bit. You kind of knew where they were going, but your thoughts on Iowa's draw in round 1 of the NCAA tournament?
I think it's a good draw. I mean, I get a little concerned about the 7 seed because I think those kind of teams might give them a little bit of trouble. But overall, I mean, you're at home. You get to you should have an easy game in the first one, and then you kind of wait and see what happens on the other side. It's kind of neat for Iowa City that they get another first 4 game like they did a couple years ago, which I'm sure that was the NCAA saying, let's put it there because we know people might show up just to watch. Because I remember a couple years ago there were actually quite a few people there. So it's kind of it's a neat deal. It shows a lot of respect for Iowa's program, just the whole thing on how they've kind of laid it out for this weekend for them. And, so and a Saturday afternoon, a really good time slot for them. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good bracket.
You look at it, and I always look at that first round matchup and kind of go from there. When you're a 2 seed, it's almost like you start letting your mind wander on what it might look like moving forward. And round 2, a Georgia, who's that 3 seed, a TCU, all of those kind of things. We'll do that in a second, but let's start with Fairleigh Dickinson. I think that's what most media people do. That's what I did. Is you go, okay, if it's a 15 seed, you're like, okay, it's Fairleigh Dickinson. Let me do some research. Did you do any research? What'd you see from Fairleigh Dickinson, or do you just know the fact that it's a 2 seed and it's a 15 seed in Iowa?
Right.
Being at home, they better take care of business. It's more about them than about the other team.
That's one of those ones you don't want to go in there and play a game where you only win by 10 or 15. I mean, you want to win that in the 20s. You want to give yourself, you want to get everybody into the game. You don't want to be playing a lot of people 35 minutes, that sort of thing. And so I do think that's going to be one of these kind of games for them. I don't think they're going to get much of a test, in that first round. it's going to be more of what comes at them the next, in the second round. So, I mean, yeah, it's like those are the kind of games where you want to win by 25 or 30, get everybody out of the game early in the fourth quarter, and get everybody and make sure everybody's healthy for round two.
You look at it, John. If you look at Iowa's big picture, it's maybe Georgia. I think it'd be great if Virginia or a Arizona State could get to that Iowa game, because I think the amount of games they play and the amount of time they have to do it would be beneficial to Iowa as well.
Right.
But you look at maybe Georgia, you got to look at that. And you mentioned those 7 seeds. Is it more just like thinking back to a few years ago and still having that thought in the memories of the Creighton that has Iowa fans, media alike, just a little gun shy about a 7 seed because of what happened Caitlin Clark's sophomore year?
Yeah, well, yeah, because you look at it and they're from the Southeastern Conference, which means they've played really good teams, and they're probably a pretty good team. And they play a different style of basketball. And if you I think back to that Creighton game and how it was officiated, and it was very, very physical game. And when those kind of games happen, you get a little worried, because then, you might get thrown off a little bit. You start worrying about the officials, you start complaining, and you kind of lose track of, so to me, that's going to be one of the bigger things is, how is that game going to be called, and how is it going to be, how are they going to play, and how is the game going to be called? And so that's why you kind of worry sometimes about that second round game, because you don't know what you're going to get. And I like you said, I think back to that Creighton game, and I even think back to that last in Caitlin's last year when they played West Virginia. That was a very physical game. And so it's like sometimes, you worry when you get in that second round that things might not go your way. And then that's when you really kind of show what kind of team you are to deal with what comes at you.
I look at a TCU as the 3 seed. And I think that's a very doable win with or not win, but it's a very good team. I'm not saying that, but a winnable game for sure if you go out to Sacramento. I looked at it too, big picture wise, John, and South Carolina is South Carolina. They're extremely good. I'm not saying they're not, but right. I think, and you weren't going to because they had already played, but I didn't want to see Iowa anywhere near UConn because you saw what that looked like already, and God knows you didn't want them anywhere near UCLA because you already saw what that looked like too. For me, I just looked at it as okay, let's take a crack at another one if we get there. And if you get there, you're already probably ahead of schedule with this group. Knowing like where they came into the season, you had expectations, but if you said they played to go to a Final Four and lost to South Carolina, I think, and they might not say this, but if you gave Coach Jensen and everybody truth serum, they would have taken that off the bat right away if you would have told them that to start their season. Your thoughts on maybe that big going out to Sacramento? Yeah, it's a hike, all those kind of things, but it's a hike for South Carolina if that's the team that's waiting for you out there too. So your thoughts maybe overall and big picture, where we've talked about it throughout the last couple of weeks. What's the ceiling for this team? Now that you have the brackets in front of you, what's the ceiling for this team? And an Elite Eight is possible, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's because I do think when a TCU becomes a better matchup for you when you get to that same, and then when you get to that second weekend, now you're playing, again, who the number 1 seed is. I don't want to say you're playing with house money, but you've already accomplished something. So there's a little less pressure on you than there is in round 2 to get out of your home court. So now you're somewhere else. Now you're one of the last 16 playing. There's a little bit of pressure off you a little bit. And so then you just go out and play. And then you roll the dice and see what happens if you get to the next round. So, like I said, I think if you get to the second weekend, that's a sign that this team is really ahead of where we thought they would be. I mean, I still thought next year would be that year where you get an Elite Eight team. Well, you might have it this year. So that kind of bodes well for down the future.
John Bohnenkamp joining us right now and off there with Matt Randazzo. Iowa in the first round of the NCAA tournament will host Fairleigh Dickinson on Saturday. John, last one with Iowa. Who's the X factor? If I said blank is the X factor, and I guess like the obvious answer is if Ava Hayden is really good, you know, like they can go a long way, all those kind of things. Is there an X factor in your head, either best player on the court or someone that's just as she goes, so does Iowa, if that makes any sense? Who would be your X factor in the postseason for the Iowa Hawkeyes?
I'm going to go with Taylor Stremlo. I mean, because I think she's played really well since she's been in the starting lineup, and she played really well when she was in the starting lineup back in December. I think she has really made a difference in this team. The intangible, if you had to look at right now, the thing that I would be worried about is Ava Hayden's foul trouble. You know, she's had issues this year. Going back to what I said earlier about a physical game, she gets taken out of that second round game early. You know, who knows what can happen then. So if you're looking at the X factor player wise, I think it's Taylor Stremlo just because of the way she's been playing. If you look at the X factor, you know, just the intangible, it's Ava Hayden staying out of foul trouble. If she can do that, this is a really good basketball team that can do a lot of different things. If you take away that part of the equation, it becomes a little different for them, I think.
It's funny, John, because this time of year, teams that shoot it really well and rely on that three, you get a little dicey, and you worry about Iowa's not that team. So there's not as much of a floor but I will say this, and my intangible is I mean, probably Chit Chat, but you could always so say Taylor Stremlo as well. They just need a few people that if I was making 8 or 9 threes a game, and they don't shoot a ton of them, so don't get me wrong, like that's probably a high percentage, right. But a lot of times you look and it's 5. It's 4, it's 6. I mean, if you can if you have somebody like an Addie Deal or a Chit Chat Right, and that's probably that Taylor McCabe missing. Yeah, exactly. If Kylie's making 2 of 4 instead of going 0 for 4, it can be a game changer as well. So I'm curious about if Iowa has enough shooting to get as far as they need to get to. And of course, Taylor McCabe, a big loss for them as well. Last week we talked with Allie Meadows on the show from Western Illinois. She was actually very nice to John, said nice things about John, which is weird because no, I'm teasing. But Allie, great Central DeWitt standout senior year, heading to the NCAA tournament. John, they're a 13 seed. Your thoughts on the draw? I think maybe I talked with you a little bit, and I even talked with Allie, and we talked openly about like, hey, Iowa's going to be a 2 seed. Do you think a 15 seed heads there? And it wasn't a 15 seed; it was a 13 seed. Your thought, I think, of Selection Sunday and where the Leathernecks landed.
It was funny. I started looking at the net, the NCAA net on Sunday morning, and it had listed who the AQs were. And there were quite a few of them below Western Illinois. And so I thought realistically they could get a 14 seed. And so to get a 13, and I think it was probably the last 13, I think, if you break it down a little bit. But still, I texted J.D. Gravina, the coach, on Sunday night, and I said, that's a pretty good seed. And he's like, I was proud of that. He goes, because, I mean, it's a big deal. And it puts them in a 4-5 bracket. They're going to get to go to North Carolina. I thought it was really good for them to get that high of a seed, and it showed really what kind of season they've had, from a metric standpoint and what they've been able to do.
You look at it and they're going to have, I mean, they play 6 girls, but one of them is Miana Castro, and she's as good as they get. What do we know about North Carolina? Obviously it goes from the excitement and I loved last week because, and even Allie admitted, like, it's kind of great to have this week off because you can enjoy what they've done and now they get back to work. Now it's like the teacher handed out the assignments on Sunday night. What is North Carolina? What do they look like? Can they be a 13 seed that shocks a 4 seed? And obviously they're going to someone's home court, so it makes it more difficult. But your thoughts on the matchup coming up this weekend?
Oh, I think if they would have had their choice, they would like to have been at 12, because then you're playing a 5 seed who isn't the home team,
Yeah.
and then everybody starts rooting for you a little bit. No, I mean, I think I saw the line. I think they're 25.5-point underdogs, which is probably a little high. But I think this is a game where, and I would have said this if they were a 15 seed too at Iowa. This is one of those games where if you want to hang around for a while and put some pressure, continue to put pressure on the higher seed. And I think they can do that. They're going to have to hit shots. You might have to get a little bit creative, maybe somebody in that doesn't play a whole lot that can get you a couple of threes, or or find some, you might want to try to do some things differently there maybe, but you have a chance. I mean, everybody has a chance this time of year, and it's and so I do think they can go there. I mean, North Carolina is going to go after Mia Nicastro. I mean, she's got the numbers, and everybody's going to know about it. They're going to go after her. So it's going to come down to, can Allie Meadows hit shots? And she can. Can Addie Brownfield hit shots? She's hit big shots all year. Kaylin Reed's going to have to hit some shots. And Madison Davis is going to have to come off the bench and do what she's done all year. They have a chance. Punchers always have a chance, as they say. And so if you can go in there and stay around for 3 quarters, you've got a chance in the 4th quarter, and that's what you want.
John, you look at college basketball, and it might not be as prevalent yet with the women yet, but it's getting there, where it's obviously the NIL, the transfer portal, all of those kind of things. To do what Western did this year and kind of, I think it was Allie that mentioned her and Addie were the 2 people that came on campus and said, hey, we're not going anywhere. We want to build something special and everything. What's it mean this day and age to do those kind of things? Because I think it means, I don't want to say more, but it's different. Yeah. If is different the right word? I don't know. But talk about what they've done, because it's hard to do in this day and age of women's basketball to get to do an NCAA tournament and to build something pretty special down in Macomb.
You look at, they were one of 25 teams out of 300 and whatever there are that didn't have anybody go in the portal last spring. And so that says something about the culture. That says something about the coaching staff. That says something about the community. And so what you're rolling out then, and I wrote about this a couple weeks ago, is you've got a rotation that's played 18,000 minutes of college basketball. And that's you're rolling out an experience, and you're rolling out players who have been together for a while. And so, JD's done a great job of keeping this team together and keeping them engaged, and then adding, he added Mia Nicastro a couple of years ago. She was really unhappy at St. Louis, and her career revived. You added Mallory Shetley in the offseason last year, and this is a girl that was a 5-year starter at the NAIA level and scored 2,100 points. So you put together a really good team. And, if it all stays together, they're going to be a pretty good team next year, even with what they lose. So, if it's a sign of kind of what, like you said, what college basketball was. And I think that's why the community embraces them. That's why, that's why they've been successful.
I want to leave you with that last one about the community, because, Allie mentioned, he's like, and you mentioned it too, because you made the trip over to Indiana, and you saw the contingency that Macomb, and I think it was probably Allie that said, she's like, we almost felt sorry for the other teams because we had what we had when it came to support and they didn't.
Right.
What, and you mentioned they've got Macomb excited, that community, and Allie brought it up. I'm playing not just for my school, but this community. You're down. What's it meant for? I think you're going down there today to chat with them. Yeah. It's been a cool relationship between a community and a university and a team when it comes to Western Illinois and that community.
Yeah, and it's a big deal. And we talked about this last time. It's a big deal for the university, which hasn't had a lot of good publicity lately, in terms of enrollment and financial issues and all that. And everybody's kind of rallied around them. And so, they're going to be playing on national TV Friday afternoon, and people are going to know about Western Illinois University. And that is a big deal, I think, for the university, for the athletic program, for the community. And the community, like I said, go back to, they've gotten to know these kids. They've gotten to know Allie. They've gotten to know Addie Brownfield. They've gotten to know Reagan McCowan, Mia Nicastro, and all the rest of them because of the work they do in the community. And academically, their grade point average is the best among all the teams in the athletic department. This is just a really fun story. I wish I could go with them because it's a fun story no matter how it ends. And I think they have represented that school and that community very well. They're great people, and I've enjoyed covering them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's well said. And yeah, that's the hope for me. It wasn't a 15 seed to go to Iowa City, but I just wanted them to go to Iowa City. I thought it would have been cool, and that community could have gone with them. But Atlee mentioned, that's cool for them as student athletes and players. They get to go. She kind of looked at it like, she mentioned TCU. She mentioned a few other places. She's like going and seeing different areas and seeing different teams and all that kind of stuff, I think is the cool part of college basketball as well.
You're walking into a legendary arena,
yeah.
in a legendary ACC arena, and and there's something cool about that,
No, absolutely. Speaking of legends, and legendary things, he's John Bohnenkamp. He's busy this entire week. We'll bug you again throughout the week, next week, all those kind of things. I know you'll be in Iowa City for the Iowa women. You'll be keeping a watch on Western Illinois as well. John, as always, I appreciate your time, my friend. Be good.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. That is John Bohnenkamp. Yeah, and we mentioned this women's basketball. We talk about our brackets for the men, the women's brackets, and my boys were filling some out for the women, and I said those top 4 seeds are just different. They're really good. But I think it's going to be intriguing the way everything kind of evolves. And then you look at it, it's different than the men because you get to host. Those host schools do have a big advantage in the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. So we got more to get to. Coming up after the break, we will talk some Cyclones. Cyclones people have gotten cranky with me because we didn't talk about them yesterday. We still haven't talked about them today. So Jake Brend will talk about the men, their matchup going to St. Louis, the road to maybe a Final Four. They haven't been to a Final Four in 88 years, I believe, which is crazy. So we'll talk about that and the Iowa State women and much more. All Cyclones with Jake Brend right after this. For over 65 years, Lindquist Ford has proudly served the Quad Cities, and they're just getting started. Looking for a new ride? Check out a healthy mix of new and quality pre-owned vehicles ready for you. Need service? Skip the waiting room. With free pickup and delivery and mobile service, they come to you. No delays, no hassle. From routine maintenance to a full-service collision repair shop, it's fast, friendly, reliable, and always transparent. Lindquist Ford, serving the Quad Cities since 1959. Experience the difference today.
Give me the keys. Learning to drive can be stressful for both the student and, yes, the parent as well. Relax. There's an easy way to avoid the stress. Skiles Driving School in East Moline has been helping new drivers hit the road with confidence for over 20 years. Whether you're a teen earning your first license or an adult looking for behind-the-wheel training, we've got you covered. Their certified instructors are patient, experienced, and use modern vehicles equipped for safety and comfort. From classroom instruction to real-world driving, we make learning safe, affordable, and even fun. Call 309-278-0098 or visit skylesdriving.com. Skiles Driving School. Get in, buckle up, drive your future forward.
Hey, I'm the Crawford guy.
Ooh, do you guys always speak at the same time?
Sorry, guys. I'll go first. You know, if you need help with your heating or air conditioning, or electrical, or plumbing, Crawford Company can solve your problem.
But what about your problem?
What problem?
Do you not hear yourselves? Take it from me, the Crawford lady.
And me, the Crawford guy.
Crawford is the comfort company.
Welcome back to Off Day with Matt Randazzo here on a Tuesday in the Quad Cities. March Madness is in full swing. Of course, if you've not gotten in to the OTA Bracket Challenge, do so ASAP. Some great packages when it comes to prizes from our awesome sponsors. So check it out. Make sure you get in. You can win awesome stuff. Even the bottom tier, the lower levels, Godfather's giving some cinnamon monkey bread away to the lower levels as well. So Godfather's up top and at the bottom as well. So make sure you get that. You can do so anywhere you see me on social media, whether it's Facebook, X, all of those places as well. We did not talk a lot of Iowa State yesterday. We told you where they were going, but of course, we want to get into it here this afternoon, or this morning, I should say, on OTA. And when it comes to the Iowa State men, they are the 2 seed. No surprise there, Midwest region down in St. Louis. Iowa State will take on Tennessee State on Friday. That game Friday afternoon at 1:50 in the afternoon. Of course, the Iowa State women also in the NCAA tournament. The Cyclones will take on Syracuse on Saturday at 4:30. They're the 8 seed. If they win that one, most likely, I'm not even going to say most likely, they will be taking on UConn, the number 1 seed in that region as well. So if we're talking Cyclones, you know we're talking with our good friend Jake Brend. He joins us live right now. Of course, Jake with Cyclone Fanatic, back from Kansas City, getting ready for St. Louis. You live a good life right now, my friend. How are you?
It's good, man. It's Christmas week. I love it. It's my favorite week of the year.
It's awesome. We're going to go back and talk a little Arizona in a minute, but I want to get we just put the bracket up. Your thoughts, no surprises, I don't think. Obviously the 2 seed in the Midwest region, but you get to see the path. And I've asked you so many times, what's the ceiling for this team? And it's a stupid question that I've asked a lot because you don't know what the bracket looks like, the road looks like. Your thoughts on the 2 seed, and then maybe big picture, the road to what Iowa State could do this next couple weeks.
Yeah, everything small picture, I think, was just as planned. 2 seed St. Louis, pretty good draw. You'll be favored by 8 to 10 points in that second game to get to the Sweet 16 for the 3rd time in 5 years. That's really impressive. It's a testament to TJ Otzelberger and what he's built so far. As far as the big path, it's really hard to not like it, and I think it's why you've seen a lot of national experts picking Iowa State not only to go to the Elite Eight, but to go to the Final Four, because I think you're seeing Michigan hobbled a little bit this time of year. I've said a couple times, I might have even said on this very program, that I didn't hate Iowa State's matchup with Michigan based off of the amount of turnovers they have, maybe some lackluster guard play. To me, I would have always rather seen Michigan than an Arizona or a Duke. And Iowa State has a lot of work to do, but they could very well potentially get Michigan. And I think if the Iowa State Cyclones play the way they did in Kansas City, then they are absolutely capable of making a run to the first Final Four since 1944.
Wow.
A long
Jake,
time ago.
When you talk about that, and I just mentioned our bracket challenge, which I'm going to try to convince Jake to get into before he goes down to St. Louis as well. And I'm to that point. I don't do mine right away, and we'll talk to you about your Final Four here in a second. Nicholas Bear was on Monday, and I think he's like, and I love Nicholas, but he's like that kid that gets the bracket. I have my oldest does this, grabs it, prints it, boom, and he's done. And I can't do that. Like, I have to let it like marinate for a little bit. But I'm to that point now where it's Iowa State and Michigan in the Elite Eight getting ready to go to the Final Four. I don't know what to do with that. We'll do some more Final Four stuff in a second. Tennessee State. What do you know about Tennessee State as a 2 seed versus the 15 seed? You shouldn't have to know too much. Sometimes it doesn't go the right way. Iowa State fans know that firsthand. Yeah. But what do we know about Tennessee State? What do you expect with Tennessee State?
Yeah, I expect a blowout. I think we're just in a different day and age. You're used to these mid-majors in the past, even though they're a 15 seed, you typically run into a lot of teams that have had guys that have been in that program for 3 or 4 years, know how to play together. It's just not really the case anymore. It's unfortunate because these mid-majors, these low majors get picked off each and every year. It's like a frosty beer. You just take the knife off the top every single year and you got to restart. And that's essentially what it is for these programs. And I think it's why we're seeing the biggest margin point spread wise in Vegas for 1s and 2s over 15s and 16s we've ever seen. And I think it's a lot of the same for this Iowa State Tennessee State matchup. They're small, they turn the ball over a lot, they don't really shoot the ball great either. They got hot in their conference tournament and blew teams out, but they've played one high major this year in Tennessee, got destroyed. I just don't see much of a threat. They've got some experienced guards, which is always what you need in March. But if Iowa State plays even 75% of the way they're supposed to or capable of it, it should be a double-digit win.
I agree. I think the fact that and even with both games, I think this weekend in St. Louis weekend in St. Louis, it's more about Iowa State than the opponent. And we maybe can talk about what do you think might be next coming up. But how is that team? You probably talked to them after the Arizona game. You talked to them probably on Selection Sunday a little bit. What's the vibe around that team? Because I think for the most part, Kansas City was productive. I mean, they did some good things. They got back on track and they took arguably the best team in the country. And it's a good argument, to the wire, and heartbreak once again by that school. But I don't think you go leaving that game going, man, what are we going to do? I think it was more encouraging than anything else. Where's the mindset of this team as it gets ready for the real tournament coming up this weekend?
Without a doubt, the most confident Otzelberger team I've ever covered. Even after that loss, like, I'm not talking yesterday or on Sunday. I'm talking 5 minutes after they lost to Arizona. The most confident team that I've been around. Maybe the most confident college basketball team I've ever covered. And I covered those Iowa women's teams that went to the national championship game. Like, I've never really seen TJ Otzelberger so confident in his group, the leaders on the team. They know that if they play the way they did in Kansas City, not just against Arizona, but against Texas Tech as well and Arizona State, they know they're going to be in an Elite Eight. And if you're in an Elite Eight and you play the way they did against Arizona, you're going to have a chance to grind out a win in the last 5 minutes to go to the program's first Final Four in over 80 years. Now, the key, how do you continue to balance that confidence with desperation? That's where it comes down to. But I think this team has lost enough games this year where you can almost tie back the reason of that loss to one thing, and it's they were the less aggressive team. That's what it is. So I think Iowa State at this point has learned their lesson enough that we got to go be aggressive. And if we're aggressive, more often than not, they'll turn teams over, they'll score off turnovers, they'll hit the glass and score off the glass as well. And that's the formula. And I think Lipsy, Jefferson, Momcilovic, Heisey, I think all those guys know that and will go out and do it.
Jake Brend from the Cyclone Fanatics joining us right now and off there with Matt Randazzo. Jake, you kind of mentioned it and the aggression that they have and being aggressive and those kind of things. I'm gonna, because I completely agree with you that the days of Cinderellas, and I'm okay with it. Yes, it's cool to see maybe the first round. I love those and they're great for one shining moment, and we'll probably get a few of those here and there. I don't think in the 1 and 2s at all. But like, I think because of this day and age of NIL, like, chalk works this time of year. Like it did last year. I think that's kind of the way it goes. So we're going to forget that it's Iowa State beating Tennessee State. Who does Iowa State want to see in the second round? Have you looked that far ahead? Kentucky, Santa Clara, what thought process in those two teams?
I think there's an argument for either, because I'll lay out the argument for Santa Clara, and there's an instant counter argument. You just don't know how good they are. You don't know how good a team is that's playing in the West Coast Conference. They can have the analytics, they can have the shooting numbers, they can have all of that, but at the same time, how many teams like Iowa State have they seen? Probably none, because I don't think Gonzaga is quite on the level they've been this year. But on the counter, they could also be a lot better than a 10 seed. They could be for all we know, they could be a 5 or a 6 seed disguised as a 10 seed, and it makes that matchup a lot tougher. The argument for Kentucky and against Kentucky would be that they're not very good, but they're athletic as heck. They're really talented. They're really skilled. And if they put it together for a game, could be really scary. Now, they haven't really put it together at all this year, which is why I would lean probably not being too terrified of either of them. But the scenario of Kentucky putting it all together for one game would make me lean. I'd rather see Santa Clara in that second game.
As I've put through this bracket together and I've looked ahead to that Sweet 16, and there you sit with maybe Virginia. And I think I said to my oldest son, like, if Virginia was in the Big 12, they would have finished blank. I'll leave that for you because, in my opinion, if they were in the Big 12, they'd probably finish 5th or 6th in the Big 12.
Probably.
Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
me disrespecting the ACC, or is I like Virginia? If I'm an Iowa State fan, Virginia doesn't send, all due respect, and they can win and they're a good basketball team, but there's better 3 seeds than Virginia, in my opinion. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like, Texas Tech didn't lose a bunch of games in the non-conference. Virginia lost to Virginia Tech. Virginia lost to Butler. Those are not good teams.
Yeah.
So Virginia very well could be what their analytics and their record indicate. They very well could be playing at a 3-seed level, but there also is the thing in the back of your head, the ACC might just suck, and they might be a byproduct of, okay, well, someone had to win these games, and they won a lot of them, and they certainly earned where they are. I don't want to discredit any of that, but they're a weird team to evaluate. There's a reason they have 4 losses and are only a 3-seed, though, because the ACC is not very strong. They haven't been strong in the past, and they didn't really beat anybody that impressive in the non-conference, so that, to me, they are a massive unknown.
No, I completely agree. And if you look at it, if I told you, hey, Jake, you get Illinois in the Sweet 16, or you get Virginia, don't you run to Virginia and play them right away?
Oh, yeah. Illinois was last. That was the team I wanted to see the absolute last in the Sweet 16. No question.
Before we talk women, let's do a Final Four thing. Now that you see the bracket, have you filled out your bracket? How are you when it comes to those things?
So I fill it out immediately, and then I delete it. I just kind of get it out of my system, like, all right, let's do this, but then I delete it, and I'll start tomorrow.
I like that. I actually like, because I feel like with my son who does that right away, I kind of like vicariously do it through him, but I still need to see trends and all those kind of things. Do you, since you have to start tomorrow, or you don't know yet, do you have a thought on what your Final Four might look like?
I think for me, I more have a better idea on the Final Four. For me, the reason I just do it right away is because it's a year buildup. You want to do it. You want to fill out a bracket. But there's also just confirmation bias within it. So like you click on a 7-10 and then you don't even think about changing it, or you tinker too much with your bracket, and that's where some of the points are won, are those 8, 9, 6, 11, blah, blah, blah. So I do have a better idea with the Final Four, and I'm going 3 1s and a 2.
So Iowa State
in my Final Four.
ones.
Yeah. That's my Final Four right now.
Can you convince me not to put Houston in the Final Four because of the fact they're playing in Houston to get to the Final Four? Am I reading too much into that? Can you convince me not to do that?
My counter to Houston would be that of all the teams in the tournament, they are the most reliant on jump shots. They get to the rim at the lowest rate of any team in the tournament. And that is a little bit concerning, and it's a little bit off brand, off character for Houston. Part of the reason it works is because Kingston Flemings is as good of a shot creator as there is in America. Emmanuel Sharp is as good of a shot maker as there is in America. But they're guards, and sometimes guards have off nights. And if they both have off nights on the same night, you could get in trouble. The other counter would be for a team that you cover closely, the Illini, is Iowa State and Houston are very similar defenses. Iowa State and Houston have very similar problems with Texas Tech in the past couple of years. Like Texas Tech is the only team probably in the country that has won at Hilton Coliseum and at the Fertitta Center in the last 2 years.
Okay.
They're the only team that's done it. And I think a lot of it is their style of offense, which is a very similar style of offense to an Illinois, to a BYU. Teams that have given Iowa State problems. Illinois knocked Iowa State out of the tournament 2 years ago. I do think Illinois is a bad matchup for Houston, but I'm also not convinced that Illinois is this super tough team either. And I think Houston very easily could bully them off the floor, throw the crowd behind them. But I don't feel as confident in taking Houston to the Final Four as I did last year.
I think I said it yesterday. Illinois reminds me of a really talented Fran McCaffrey team. And what I mean by that is Fran's really good teams, and no disrespect to Fran, but like they would get up like 12, 14, 15 points, and I'd be like, all right. And then like you would blink, and all of a sudden it's a 2-point game. And it's like, what just like, how did you go from being up? And that's Illinois so often against Ohio State, or not, excuse me, not Ohio State, but Wisconsin. They were up 15 late first half. And then it was like, so that's sometimes Illinois can shoot themselves out of basketball games instead of, but they can also, if they make shots, which is a dumb statement because if any team makes a lot of shots, they usually do pretty well. But if they shoot adequately, they can beat a lot of teams. If they shoot really well, they can beat anybody in the country. Jake Brend joining us right now on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. Let's talk about the Iowa State women, because earlier this year, I remember I always go through my shows and grab the good things that people say and put to social media so you guys can watch it more and all that good stuff. And one of the things you said was like, this is Bill Fenley's best chance, you know, at a Final Four or as an Elite Eight or what I can't remember, something lofty. Now, obviously that was before injuries happened and all those kind of things. Boy, they didn't do them any favors by putting them on an 8-9 and UConn next. Thoughts on, I guess, just the overall bracket first. I want to talk about a UConn matchup possibly, but Syracuse is really good too. Your thoughts on what the women got dealt on Sunday night?
Yeah, I mean, they got dealt a hand that they set up. They had an opportunity to not be on the 8-9 line. I know they had injuries, but they blew a double-digit lead at TCU fully healthy. They blew a double-digit lead at home against Oklahoma State while healthy. They were a no-show at the Big 12 tournament while healthy. So, yes, there's excuses. There's all of that for the injury bug and to not reach the team ceiling. But they should be a 6 seed if they would have taken care of business when they should have taken care of business. So that's answer one to your question. Answer two, I mean, I think the draw against Syracuse is okay. Syracuse is 1-7 against quad one teams, and they haven't really been close in any of their games against other good teams. So there's a world where Iowa State plays like the Iowa State team that I said earlier in the year I thought could make an Elite Eight, and Iowa State could blow Syracuse out. However, it's what awaits in the round of 32 that takes the air out of that round of 64 game regardless, even if Iowa State plays awesome. If they play their best game of the season against Syracuse, you look up at UConn and realize, well, even if they play that exact same level, they're going to need 10 different miracles to be able to take down UConn. And that's the unfortunate nature of women's basketball right now, is the 1 seeds are still so much better than everybody else. And that's why it's on this team of Audie Crooks, Addie Brown, Ariana Jackson, Jada Williams. It's on them next year to put themselves in a better position than to have to go to stores and play number 1 UConn.
Help me. It was a couple years ago. They went out to Stanford and they went to the Sweet 16. Yep. It was 2-3 years ago. And I'm not going to sit here on my own show and say they're going to be UConn. I don't want to go. I'm not that crazy. But if you have a player like an Audie Crooks, if you're UConn, are you at least paying attention to, like, I didn't really want to see Audie Crooks in the second round of the NCAA tournament?
I don't know. I don't know if UConn is scared of anyone.
That's true.
I don't think they would have been too torn up if they got UCLA as their 8 seed. I think they're that good, and I think they're that confident in their ability. Sure, Audie Crooks is a massive matchup nightmare, and she's really good. She is, at points, unguardable. The problem is, even if Audie's unguardable for a game and scores 45, you can still find a way to score 20, 30 against her. And I think UConn's perimeter players are just so above anyone else in the country that they're going to be able to score at will, not just against Iowa State. That's not an Iowa State thing. They're going to be able to score at will against anybody until they get to the Final Four. And then even once they get there, they'll probably do what they want to any team they meet at the Final Four.
Last women's question for you. Who wins the national championship for the women? It's not a Final Four thing. I think you're right. My son, one of my son kids, I always reference my kids. Jake, I have too many kids. I got like 100 of them. But one of them was filling out a women's bracket yesterday, and I said, just take the ones. And they're like, well, Dad, that's not what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, no, in women's like I really feel that's the Final Four. Who's the national championship? UConn?
Yeah, I actually, a couple weeks ago, I placed a fun bet. It didn't work. I took like a decent long shot in NASCAR and parlayed it with the UConn women at like minus 300 to win the national championship. So I could have had something to cheer for. But the NASCAR driver didn't get it done. I think it was Ryan Blaney back when I was in Arizona. So that didn't work out, but it would have been a really fun parlay to have if that long shot NASCAR driver would have won. Then I would have been hanging tooth and nail by UConn on their way to the Final Four.
All right, before we let you
go. But who knows? Shock the world, Cyclones.
Man, I tell you, yeah, exactly. Quickly, did you get any barbecue in Kansas City last time we talked to you? You were thinking about going, you didn't go?
You won't believe this. I didn't pay for a single meal.
It's not a bad thing, man. That's not a bad thing at all.
I was at the arena all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday, all day Thursday, ate lunch and dinner there for free all 3 of those days. Friday, I had so much work to do, and after our show, I had more work to do, and I room serviced some buffalo wings, which just I think went on the company card.
There you go.
And then I ate dinner again at the arena. So I didn't make it out to get barbecue, and I'm ashamed, but I have been to KC enough to where I know what I'm missing, but I know I'll be back at the same time.
No, absolutely. Lastly, what's the plan this week for Cyclone Fanatic, for yourself? Kind of talk about some coverage. I know you had the Taman Lipsy feature. Is that coming up? Have you already put that out? Kind of tell us what's going on.
That should be out today. It should be out today on Cyclone Fanatic. I sat down with his wife at the Big 12 tournament, so check that out. Cyclone Fanatic YouTube across all socials. But other than that, I'll be handcuffed to a podcast mic. That's all I'll be doing the next 5 or 6 days, just talking basketball really until this run ends. We have so much content, literally nonstop at Cyclone Fanatic in Iowa everywhere. So just hit subscribe on YouTube and you won't miss anything.
Jake, drive safe, continue living. I'm going to just live vicariously through you, man. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm sure I'll bug you this week. We'll catch up sometime soon. Always appreciate you. And get into the off the air bracket challenge.
Yeah, send me the link. I'll get in.
And if you win, and if it's too quiet, it'll give you a reason to come to the Quad Cities. And I can buy you dinner or a beer or something like that, or probably
or both.
That
sounds good.
I was gonna say at this point I probably owe you like 17 meals and like a brewery and everything else. So thank you, my friend. We'll catch up soon.
Yep. Thanks, Dazzo.
All right, that is Jake Brend, Cyclone Report. Jake Brend. It makes sure. I kind of sounded like I said Brenda. Jake Brend with Cyclone Fanatic, and just doing a great job. Make sure you check out all his stuff. Cyclones, I like them. I got to figure it out sometime today. I'm gonna have everything said and done at the end of today when it comes to my bracket, and I'm between Michigan and Iowa State, and I don't know what to do. So we got a lot more to get to. You're watching Off the Air. It's a Tuesday right here in the Quad Cities. We'll be right back. Are you looking to take your next party, tailgate, or golf outing to the next level? You need mobile party experience. MPX features 3 top-of-the-line party trailers equipped with all the amenities you need to party like a rock star. Smart TVs, mini coolers, JBL sound systems, grills, bathrooms, and much more. Mobile party experience is an experience like no other. Check out my-mpx.com or call 563-514-1470 and book your mobile party experience today.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Tuesday in the Quad Cities. Tuesday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. I just went downstairs. My wife is home today from work. My kids are on spring break, and they were eating green waffles, and I didn't realize why. I just saw the waffles like, son, why is it green? And my wife put green dye in it because it's St. Patrick's Day. So happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody out there. I always think of my mom and wish my mom a happy St. Patrick's Day. She's all Irish. We have some cool Irish stuff down in the basement my wife decorates with, and it's basically because my mom has given us gifts of little knickknacks over the years. So it's almost like a shelf to mom, if you will. So anyways, it's been a fun show so far. A few things have happened during the show that we'll get you caught up with. There's been a trade in the NFL. Jalen Waddle traded by the Dolphins to the Broncos along with a 4th-round pick for a 1st-round pick, 3rd-round pick, and a 4th-round pick. So Waddle goes for a 1 and a 3, and they basically swap 4s. And I thought the Bears got a great value for DJ Moore getting a 2 out of the deal, but a lot of times people will say the Bears got a 2 for DJ Moore. Well, they got for DJ Moore, they swapped a 2 and a 5. And yes, that's still good to get a 2. They did give a 5 back, so it wasn't just 4 or 2. So almost a 5-2 swap. This is, I mean, obviously Jalen Waddle is younger, for sure. So probably getting him in his prime. Nice pickup for the Broncos. They needed another weapon at wide receiver. Probably better value than what they gave up for DJ Moore. So the trades continue. The NFL, it's like March Madness is killing it. Everybody's talking basketball, and they're like, oh, by the way, we're still king. Here's a blockbuster trade to talk about. So that is free agency kind of winding down, but there's still big names out there. So we'll continue to keep our eye on the NFL, and the draft is next month, which is crazy. So the NFL always, and I think Iowa Pro Day is coming up next week, I think is what the email said. So they just sent it out today. So NFL, always on everybody's mind. Speaking of being on everyone's mind, I have to tell people once again, you can go to our my social media, and the link is right there on my social media. I'm going to try to get it out there as much as possibly can this afternoon as well. But the OTA Bracket Challenge is going right now. Head on there. It's CBS Sportsline. I think if you go to CBS Sportsline and just when you go to pools, search Off the Air with Matt Randazzo, I think you could probably find it. But if not, just go to my social media, the Facebook page, or at Matt Randazzo on Twitter. Links are there. Go ahead and hit the link. I'm going to put up there right away, and get your picks in, get your brackets filled out. The prize packages include MPX party trailer for a day and a party sub from Hobo, which is outstanding. Great to put those two things together. Snoop's, and a bunch of food from Snoop's and Godfather's Pizzas, and then a $50 Visa gift card as well. So great prizes. The last place person also gets a cinnamon monkey bread from Godfather's as well. So really great prizes, absolutely free, of course. So head on there and get things filled up, and we'll kind of keep everybody updated through the week. I know some people, I've talked to a lot of people, or people message me and say, hey, I'm waiting for the games to get done tonight and tomorrow. So I understand that, but go ahead and get registered in, fill it out mostly, and then go back and do those picks if you need to as well. So if you missed parts of today's show, Kyle Huesmann at the very top talking Iowa women's basketball. Carver Hawkeye will be the place to be this weekend. Iowa will take on Fairleigh Dickinson coming up on Saturday, and then maybe Georgia on Monday, and then kind of talking about the big picture for Iowa as well. We had John Bohnenkamp doing the same with Iowa. Also some Western Illinois women talk. They are a 13 seed. They're heading to North Carolina to take on North Carolina, but I think it's cool they're a 13 seed. So John Bohnenkamp, one of the best in the business. Go back and check that out as well. And then if you're a Cyclone fan, Jake Brend was exactly what you needed today. If you're an Iowa fan, probably don't want to watch that segment. Not that he was mean to Iowa. No, he didn't. He wasn't mean at all. But Jake likes to make Iowa fans mad. He didn't today, but he's been known to. So thank you to Jake for joining us, and go check that out as well. Coming up tomorrow on the show, I mentioned it at the top, but KJ Lamont, former Rock Island standout. Great season at Indian Hills. He was Conference Player of the Year. They're getting ready for the national tournament. We'll have KJ Lamont on the show tomorrow. Excited about that. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but and maybe some don't remember, but when I first started doing the show, I had a lot of in-studio guests. And but boy, I would say the first couple months it was somebody every day. And we haven't done it in a while, probably months since we've actually had somebody in studio with us. We've gone out and about and done things like that, but nobody in studio. Tomorrow, Greg Armstrong's going to be here from View from the West, longtime sports guy here in the area. I worked with Greg for several years at WQAD. A little co-host tomorrow. So we'll come up with some fun things to do with Greg, KJ Lamont. Also, probably try to track down Tyler Tashman and a few others this week as well. So a lot to get to tomorrow. The games start on Thursday. Shows on Thursday and Friday, definitely. I don't see myself being here when too much into when the games start. I think they start at 11:15. So maybe shorter shows, maybe a skosh, maybe a little bit shorter than normal. Because the basement is set up. I got the 5 TVs, the bracket on the wall. The boys put that up there. It's gonna be a good weekend. So, and hopefully we have a lot to talk about come next week as well. So, thank you guys so much for watching a Tuesday edition of Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. Make sure you check out yesterday's show as well. Nicholas Baer, Tom Kaker talking Iowa basketball. Great conversation with a guy that I've gotten to know very well, a friend of mine, Scott Harding, Brock Harding's dad, about TCU and Brock heading to the NCAA tournament. They will take on Ohio State. I believe it's the very first game of Thursday, around 11:15. So, and then also yesterday, Mike Hagley talking a lot of Illini basketball. So we've got you covered all over the place. Jim Matson sometime this week as well. We'll get a hold of him as well. This is the type of week where you're not looking as much for interviews as much as expertise, if that makes sense. And we'll have a lot of it here on OTA. So thank you guys again for watching today's show, and get in the bracket challenge. It's well worth it. We'll see you guys tomorrow.